country, and also we move to the international arena to discuss issues that are happening on the international scenes but have a bearing in as far as our day-to-day lives are concerned. And also in the program, we have the very last segment where we discuss issues that are to do with how we journalists conduct our day-to-day business. That's the newsroom segment. But without much ado, let me introduce to you our guest in the program today, Brian Ligomeka. Brian is Executive Director for Center for Solution Journalism. Brian, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
First things first, it's been a while, let me be a little honest. It's been a while without you and I talking. I remember you last time you had an audience with Jawezi and what have you. But first things first, President Lazarus Chakwera has challenged the United Nations to silence petty and narrow interests and provide answers to four critical or crises facing it: climate change, COVID, sustainable development, and the UN governance. In a nutshell, Chakwera dares UN. The president is also demanding release of 500 million COVID vaccine doses. Firstly, is the president's frustration over inequalities, because the story is bordering inequalities in as far as the handling of the COVID is concerned, is it justifiable?
It is very justifiable. I think like many leaders in Africa and like many people and even organizations, what is happening in the world in response to COVID pandemic leaves a lot to be desired. The disparities and the inequities that are there will make it for the global village to take a long period of time to actually contain the COVID pandemic. You see that in one part of the world, the global north, a lot of people are getting vaccinated and access to vaccination there is easier. While on the other part of the world, the global south, there is lack of vaccines because of the outdated models that are there, which we are using as a globe.
I was to get there. Why the disparities?
Let us admit that we have three worlds.
Okay.
Yeah, we have the first world, or developed world, the developed nations. We have the second tier, or what are also known as middle income countries, and we have the lower tier, the third world, or the low income countries.
In which we fall?
We are in the low income category. Malawi is in that category. So you find that a lot of people in poor countries or low income countries do not have access to the much needed COVID vaccines, whilst many people in the global north or in the developed world or the first world have easy access to vaccines due to the issue of availability. So those disparities, what others are calling apartheid, need or ought to be addressed if we are to defeat the pandemic.
Let's face this head on, Brian. Would we reach a level where we are all equal?
We cannot be equal, but at least access to much needed resources should be made easy. The reason is we have a pandemic which does not respect borders. We have COVID. Even if people in the global north attempt to contain it by vaccinating every citizen, but because we travel, we move from one area to the other, because COVID doesn't respect borders, they will still be hit by mutations which are coming from the other parts of the world. So the best response to a global pandemic is a global response and not nationalism or a national response. That will not work. This was a problem which was in China, but it's a problem which is now in every part of the world.
Both the third,
the first and the second, and even the third.
One would still argue to say Is it about lack of capacity, especially among the third world nations where Malawi falls? Is it a matter of lack of capacity?
I've referred to the issue of outdated models, the issue of handouts, the issue of giving African nations leftovers. Let us vaccinate our people first. Then when we have leftovers, we will now send that to the third world. Or let us use the medicines first. Whatever will remain, the little portion, will go to low-income countries. That's a problem. That's a big problem. It's an outdated model. What we need at the moment is that there should be transfer of technologies. We have pharmaceutical companies in Africa which can also, if given the intellectual rights, produce the vaccines, just as India is doing at the moment. And I would have loved if the developed nations transferred that expertise and to other countries so that we can produce that. At the height of HIV and AIDS in the world, that was done. That's why there are many companies at the moment which are producing ARVs or life-prolonging drugs for HIV and AIDS. Yeah, availability is now easy for that pandemic.
We'll get back to the issue on the table, but let me divert a little. What has brought about the categorization of economies and countries in the world?
It's international politics.
Is it not to do with capacity or the lack of capacity in particular countries?
Countries can choose. Some countries can choose to make others poor.
Okay.
That's why I said it's international politics. You remember colonization? When Africans were moved from their continent to other parts of the world to work for free. When resources from Africa were exploited and used in other parts of the world, that happened. We cannot run away from that history, but we need to correct it. We need to correct it. Africa should not just provide resources for rich or developed nations, but rich nations should also have a responsibility of transferring some of the skills to Africa. We can African nations produce all sorts of medicines in their pharmaceutical companies. And if given the intellectual rights, they can even produce their own vaccines. So that's what we need now. That's empowering each other. And that will enable availability of the much needed vaccines all over the world. But now we have these disparities because there are few developed nations which are manufacturing these drugs, whilst many developing countries like Malawi, Zambia, are struggling to get those drugs either given through COVAX, or some few countries are even able to budget there some resources to buy. But the process takes time as well. Yeah.
On a lighter note, should we go herbal? Nonetheless, in his plea, President Lazarus Chakwera said developed countries should release both the vaccine doses and vaccine production rights, as you're putting it, and that should be done immediately. Would they move an inch?
Anyway, that was an appeal, a loud call made by the Malawian president. Whether they would move an inch or not, that's the discretion of the people who are producing the drugs and the people who are holding the intellectual and the production rights. Yeah. But I believe that some companies and even some countries and even some organizations that are funding this are doing things in good faith. That's why when a number of vaccines were certified, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and whatever were certified. Some of them immediately pledged that they will actually donate some to countries which could not afford to buy or manufacture their own drugs through a facility known as COVAX. The only setback is that COVAX has got its own weakness, the problem of funding. Okay? And we expected much of the drugs provided under COVAX to come from India. But India was also hit hard, and they actually reduced the number of vaccines that they were exporting to other countries because they were dealing with their domestic problem at home. So that's the problem. If one country is now putting restrictions on vaccine exports, it means that you need to give those production and intellectual rights to more other companies so that you are able to make available the drugs all over the world.
So it's about their discretion.
It's their discretion. If you have something, it's up to your discretion to share that with me or to keep it to yourself.
But in his own words, President Chakwera said, this form of vaccine nationalism, you used that word as well in the context of our conversation. This form of nationalism is wrong. It is insensitive and it must end. Release the vaccine. A strong statement, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a strong statement. But first of all, you need also to look at the context of the situation in various countries. The first countries to be hit hard was obviously India. Then it came the other countries in the global north. Then the pandemic spilled over to our continent. So every nation actually prioritizes its own citizen. You can only make an appeal. Our president can only make an appeal. But there is no any other force that he can use. So in terms of global politics, it wouldn't make sense for a country like India to manufacture all the vaccines and export them to Africa when its own people are dying. We need also to look at the context and how other countries have been hit hard by the pandemic. It's good that the president made that appeal, but we should also understand situations in other countries.
He is chairing the regional bloc. He is in the grouping of least developed countries, where Malawi has a key position. Would that maybe escalate the pressure?
I believe that there are many people and many organizations of goodwill. After the president's appeal, I believe that some countries and even some funders would be able to channel some of their resources to procurement of the vaccines for low-income countries like Malawi. Yeah. So it's good that he made that appeal.
What does this whole narrative entail? What does this whole conversation entail in as far as African leaders' role in as far as pushing the agenda on the global table?
We are living in a global village. When some countries in Asia or in Europe pollute the world, the effects of climate change will hit us hard. When there is an outbreak of a pandemic, like COVID somewhere, we will catch the flu. And that's what has happened. So you cannot sit back and say we are a low-income country. So let us just watch the big brothers play their role. No. Whatever is happening there will affect us. So because whatever is happening elsewhere will affect the other part of the globe or the other part of the world, it's important that everyone should be proactive. And the president is right to be proactive, voicing his concerns and the concerns of many African nations on the scarcity of the vaccines on the continent.
Do you foresee a day when no longer would there be categories in terms of first, third, second world?
That's an aspiration of many countries. But let us face reality. We are a third country today. We may not be a third country tomorrow, because many people, many countries are doing everything possible to turn around their economies. So these categories that we are talking about, of a low-income country or a middle-income country or a higher income earning country, these will one day go away. But it's a matter of investing in our countries. It's a matter of investing in countries that are struggling. That we should do ourselves. That we should do with support from our partners. Yeah.
Talking of partners, and talking of which, President Jaguar once mentioned to say, if we are to walk towards recovery, one thing required: debt cancellation.
It's important, yes. There are a number of interventions that can be done. The issue of debt cancellation, the issue of putting much emphasis on trade rather than the handouts, the donations. That's why I have problem with the COVAX arrangement, where you say, when we have manufactured so many doses of these vaccines, then 10 or 15% should go to our brothers who are in the third world. I have problems with that. Why don't we say, instead of just transferring or giving them the doses, let us transfer the technology that we are using to their countries so that they can manufacture on their own.
But Brian, talking of debt cancellation, slightly over a decade ago, under the highly indebted poor countries, HIPC, Malawi and other African countries saw a debt relief. Today, gradually, we are crawling back to that level. Unsustainable, isn't it?
Debt. When we talk of debt, we are talking of money which you already used.
Okay.
The relief is that instead of refunding that money, paying back that money, somebody has said that now do not pay back that money. Sometimes it doesn't mean that you have that money.
Okay.
That money was already used.
So
that money was already eaten.
It's a psychological relief.
It's a psychological relief. The advantage is that it makes the country save resources which would have been used to repay the debt. Our setback is sometimes lies with our leadership.
Because
what do we do with the resources that we save by not repaying back
why
the
have
money?
we failed to learn or draw a lesson from such?
The problem we have, I think, as a nation, and even as a continent, is that we love to fund consumption instead of funding development. If you look at the Malawian budget, the budget of this country, a huge chunk goes to consumption. I can ask a question. Are we really benefiting from the so-called input subsidy programs? Are we benefiting? After giving the same poor people fertilizers for over a decade, have they graduated from poverty to another level? And for how long are we going to continue putting billions in that? Those are the difficult questions we should answer. In politics, if you stop giving the input subsidies to the farmers, you may lose your position. You will be in trouble. You will become unpopular. But are those subsidies developing Malawi? We have a situation here in Malawi where we give 1 million people those subsidies. They buy fertilizers at a low cost, at subsidized prices. Come January and February, government will still go and purchase maize to feed the same 1 million people who were given fertilizers. This is exactly what is happening in Malawi and in other countries.
In your argument, Brian, I'm meant to believe that African leaders, Malawi primarily inclusive, have capacity to sit on the global table in their own right, rather than just be on the receiving end. What needs to be done?
What priorities? We are begging, asking for 500 million doses of vaccines. That's what our president did. Please give us 500 million what? Doses. There should come a time when the president should say, please, transfer that technology. Give us the rights to produce those vaccines. When you produce on your own, you are creating jobs. When you are producing your own, you are controlling even the prices of the vaccines in your country and even on your continent. When you are producing on your own, you are benefiting more, even in terms of expertise.
Hence my question.
Yes.
Would we ever be at that point, as a country, as a continent?
We will. It all starts with this discussion. It all starts with the loud call that the president has done, that we need the 500 million doses. You promised one, but we also need the production and the intellectual rights. That's the genesis of it.
Talking of the 500 million doses, before you proceed, the United States has since pledged to donate 500 million more doses of vaccine to developing nations next year. Timely intervention, or we remain on the receiving end?
Timely, no, but it's better late than never. It's better late than never. Let us appreciate that. That's what we need, that other partners, other countries should be able to support countries that are not able to produce the vaccines on their own. And the USA has set a good example. Let other countries emulate. Because although I'm putting emphasis on the issue of African countries producing vaccines on the continent, in terms of infrastructure installation and whatever, that may take time. You need other intervention that will address immediate challenges that are there. Yeah.
If we talk of COVID, we'll go beyond the health issue. COVID has had a knockdown effect on most economies, and here in Malawi inclusive. Issues like lockdowns and what have you have had a bearing on the economy. What is the way forward? What would we need to do to walk out of the trouble that we are in?
We also need to play our role. It is one thing here to just point fingers at the haves, the people who have the capacity, the people who have the resources, the people who have the vaccines. It is one thing to point fingers at them. It is also another thing altogether to point fingers at ourselves, at our own shortfalls as well. As a country, why haven't we budgeted even a single tambala to buy the vaccines? And all we have is to go to the mountain tops to beg. We had 16 billion. In that 16 billion budget for COVID response, why didn't we take 10 billion to say, at least we will buy few doses for ourselves? Why? What are our priorities? Should we just become popular for pointing fingers at others when we can't sit down with our little resources and attempt to buy our own vaccines? Those are the things that we should think about. As citizens, why do we walk around without putting on masks? At individual level, we also need to reflect. As citizens, why is it that even when those other countries have donated the vaccines, we let the vaccines to expire And we reach even the point of hitting international headlines that Malawi has banned expired vaccines, expired doses of vaccines. Why? There are vaccines in some of the hospitals around. You go there, there is no one. The health workers are going there every day to administer the vaccines. But people are not going there because of their, what I call stupid traditional and sometimes even religious beliefs. So others may have a problem, but we also have a problem. Even if we are given those 500 million doses of vaccines today, are we going to run to the hospital to get the jab? There are also issues that African countries should deal with.
Tough questions. Let's
Yes.
break a bit.
Thank you.
There are also issues that African countries would have to tackle or address. We'll be right back. This is a Cauldron where editors meet.
Sometimes
Stating the obvious.
is your only choice.
Times Television.
Times Television,
Times Television is Miss Malawi
Television Station of the Year.
6 years,
6 years.
6 years in a row. And we salute all our viewers.
as well as advertisers,
For the unwavering support.
And we ignore all unnecessary noise
give you best value.
for your money and time.
We rule.
We rule.
We rule the media kingdom in Malawi.
It's about time.
Welcome back. My name is William Kumwembe, and this is the Cauldron where editors meet. And we are discussing this far issues to do with politics revolving around COVID and the COVID vaccination. Where on Wednesday this week, President Lazarus Chakwera made a call to the United Nations that at least there is need for universal approach to dealing with the pandemic. Now, there is also some fresh calls from rights group voting top vaccine makers. Now, the international human rights watchdog Amnesty International has equally voted 6 top manufacturers of COVID vaccine for promoting vaccine inequality in the international community. Before we went to break, I should admit, Brian, you needed some coolant prior to going to the break, because I saw you boiling. Because of one simple, straightforward issue that African countries seem not to be doing enough. Is that your message?
I mean, you cannot squarely blame African countries. You know, when you are in a global village, you need to support each other. So, African countries have to play their role, and even the developed world also needed to play its own role, so that we all can combat and reduce the deaths and the suffering caused by COVID. Yeah.
When I was calling for coolant, angrily, Brian, you said, why is it that as a country, we have the vaccine, no one is going there to get the jab, yet not so long from now, if it expires, it will go into the fire furnace.
Yeah, that's why I said that there are also issues that countries in Africa should also deal with. We heard officially from the Ministry of Health that at least people in the northern and central region were going for the jabs, but southern region was lagging behind. Surely there are issues, surely there are reasons, causes that need to be addressed. So, as we are fighting for more doses, I don't want to use the word donations, as we are fighting for more doses, we
In
should
form
also
of-
we should also be addressing our own problems on the ground that are actually hampering the administration of the vaccines in some areas.
Now, Amnesty International has also added a voice on the very same call. This time around, they're calling for a fair playing ground. Seems a big concern now.
Yeah, it's a big concern that some countries are practicing what are many people calling vaccine nationalism. First of all, let us deal with the people in our own country. Then, if we were to support others, we will support them with what will be left. So, first of all, you look at the national interest, ignoring the global problem. That's the vaccine nationalism. That first of all, let our people get vaccinated. Then, when we have leftovers, we will share that with other countries. But as I've said, the problem with COVID is that it's in all parts of the world. You can vaccinate your own people, but someone from somewhere will bring a new COVID mutation. So the best is to make sure that these vaccines are available throughout the world, in all countries. People should be able to get the jab.
In its report, the Amnesty International, titled "A Double Dose of Inequality," Amnesty International accuses top COVID-19 vaccination companies for what it calls implementing policies that are in favor of wealth states over developing nations, which is an argument you have raised over and over and over again. The tough question is, what is it that needs to be done? What can we do to at least level the playing field?
I think the discussions which have been going on are fruitful. The various rights groups have been voicing out that there is need for vaccine equity. And that's very important, that all countries, all citizens, if it was possible, everyone should get a jab. That's the best way. But if you just decide that you will focus on your country, then you will still be affected by the pandemic which is raging in the neighboring countries and in other countries. Yeah.
So, going forward, let me bring it to your attention, of course. Last week, the World Health Organization said only 2% of the 5.7 billion COVID doses administered globally have been administered in Africa. Only 2%. We are left out of the equation.
At least there is a starting point. We are 2%. Let's find that
2% of...
we push to 10%, 30%, 60%, maybe up to 80%. But at least we have started. As I've said, at first we all heard that it's China which has been hit hard. So the focus was there. Then we moved to the global north, that it was hit hard. Then on the continent of Africa, we had fewer cases. Then we heard that South Africa has been hit hard as well. So even the responses, I think they took the same pattern. Yeah. Who has been hit hard? It's global North Asia, then Africa. I think the responses took that pattern. But now that the entire globe has been hit, that's why there is need for that equity. There is need to make sure that the vaccines are available throughout the globe.
You made mention, you alluded to that debt and aid might not be as sustainable. Trade would be.
Yes.
What do we need to do as a continent to be equally competitive in the world of trade?
As a continent, we need to focus much on trade, as I've said. That the problem is sometimes with our priorities. If we have a chance to have 500 billion. How do we want to use that 500 billion, which we have collected from taxes in Malawi? Are we just going to use it for the belly today? Or are we going to invest in something that will generate income for the next 10 years? We need to start thinking in that way. When taxes are collected, when we have that 1 trillion budget, how do we want to use that money? Obviously, there will be an allocation for consumption, but we should also do justice to an allocation to development or investment. Because the allocation to development and investment will ensure that in the future, we will be generating money from what we have invested today. But as I've said, in many African countries, the problem is we put a lot of money in consumption. And the type of consumption that is not even sustainable. Surely, I wouldn't want to be given a bag of fertilizer every year for the next 20 years. If you give me that bag for 2-3 years, at least I should now be able to stand on my own and start buying my own fertilizer. I should even be empowered to know that there are substitutes to fertilizer. We can make our own manure. That's what we need. To empower people to make money. To empower people to make resources. But when we create this situation where we entrench people that they will get everything for free, because that's the culture that we are creating. We will have a free education. We will have free medicines in the hospital. We will have free fertilizers. We will maybe even be getting free spouses. I mean, if we develop that culture amongst our children and the next generation, I think we are making a mistake. People should be able to know that after being supported for 5-6 years, I should graduate into an independent person. That's what we do usually, even in our culture, and even in many cultures. You look after children for 21 years, or some for 25 years. After 25 years, you expect them to stand on their own and live their independent life. You don't want to look after them up to the age of 60. That's abnormal. But with some of these free things and the subsidies that we are having, I have problems with them because they don't have an exit point and there is not even exit strategy. All you say is that every year we will be spending so much billions on this program. But you don't even want to tell us how much you will be spending on development. Things that will create jobs, the 1 million jobs that we talk about. Things that will make people independent. Because if people are independent, they will go and support the 1 million who are in the low income bracket. But I think there's a need to rethink our approaches and our strategies. I think that's why we have even the beautiful blueprint, the Vision 2063 for Malawi. If we can just walk the talk and implement it, we will get there.
Let's break again.
Yeah.
He says, if we can just walk the talk and implement it, we'll get there. This is the Cauldron, where editors meet. We'll be right back. My name is William Kumwembe, and this is the Cauldron. We are getting into the very final segment of the program, the newsroom segment. The question is, who controls the media? Brian, who controls the media? That's a question that sounds too academic, but it remains relevant, especially that there are a number of stakeholders, all of whom would desire their interest to be advanced in as far as the media machinery and operations are concerned. But who controls the media?
It's an academic question, and books have been written about that. But the truth of the matter is that the owner of the media house is the one who controls that media house and the content that goes into it. If you have a state media outlet like our MBC, it's the government that will be in control of that media outlet. The appointments will be done by the government. The editorial policy will be done by the government. That's what will happen. And don't even get surprised when the president of that country makes news regularly on that media outlet. Likewise, if a religious organization is running a media outlet, the editorial policy will be set by that religious media outlet. And whatever that religious organization does will feature highly as a news item in that media house. So ownership influences, one, the editorial policy, two, content, three, even the approach that the media practitioners use in their reportage. The others may have interest and may wish to have some control or whatsoever, but ownership is key.
Because we're talking of, you've made mention of ownership, there is the element of audience,
Yes.
there is the element of advertisers, which might have a stake, the media owners, as you have put it, management, and then the custodians of the storytelling themselves, the newsroom in this context. Could such control have a bearing in as far as biases are concerned?
Yeah, those others have just got interests. But in terms of ownership, it's the media owners. Yes, the ownership actually influences the biases that are there. But what is very critical is that although there should be those biases, fairness is very, very crucial. So the issue of being fair to all the people that you are reporting about, or to all the issues that you are reporting about, is extremely crucial. You cannot tell any state media house to stop prioritizing the activities of the head of state. Even if an opposition leader is owning a media outlet, you cannot tell that media outlet to stop prioritizing the activities of that opposition leader who owns the media outlet. But what is extremely important is that there should be fairness.
I'll get there. Do we have sometimes conflict between stakeholders over content put across?
Yes, yes. Actually, that conflict is very heavy and very fruitful. As an audience, I have my expectations of what I should view on a media outlet that claims to be independent, and a media outlet that brands itself as a public broadcaster or as a state broadcaster. And when they are broadcasting or when they are publishing articles that are against my wishes, my expectations, yeah, then I can even raise concern. I can even phone. I can even write. I can even criticize the media outlet. So even the advertisers have their own expectations. When a company is putting 20 million in advertising, it doesn't expect the same media house to criticize it.
Last but not least, Brian, briefly, how could lines be clearly drawn?
It's at least people should use the editorial policies, as I've said. And sometimes it's good to use independent editorial policies, like those issued by Media Council of Malawi. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brian. Brian Gomega is Executive Director for Center for Solutions Journalism. It's always a pleasure to have you in the program. Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you.
That's how we concluded today the Cauldron where editors meet. My name is William Kumwembe. On behalf of the entire production team, I say bye for now.